going on?
Okay, let's begin. So let's review the last piece of the Mishnah. If you want to start, we're going to go back a page to 6b3, okay? And on 6b3, the end of the Mishnah, let's look at the last two lines, right in the middle of the page. Umikarin et hapirtza b'moed, and you're allowed to close up the breach that's made in the wall on moed on chol moed. So let's just review what we're talking about here. The word in Hebrew for a wall, and in Aramaic also, is koreh. Kuf vav resh hey. So mikarin is the verb made of the word koreh. You're allowed to wall.
Mem kufresh is the shoresh.
Kufresh.
Oh, just
Okay?
kufresh?
Yeah. Kufresh. Kuf vav resh hey is the word, and kor is comes from the word kir. Kir is also a wall, okay?
Wood, yeah.
So, mikarin,
Blackwood.
right? Mikarin,
Called kir.
dofek bakir. You know, that means hitting your head on the wall, right? So, mikarin is the verb of a wall. You're allowed to wall a hole in that on moed, on chol moed. Uba shivit, and on shmita also, you're allowed to make a hole in the wall. We already, in the Mishnah, we already said yesterday, well, how could that be? How are you allowed to close off the wall? So we said that there's going to be an answer to that. We'll get to it in the Gemara. So on moed and shibi'it.
No, but we said fence.
Uba shibi'it, boneket darko, huh?
We said you could do the fence. And we talked about you could also do the fence, fix the fence.
Yeah, we're going to come to exactly what it means.
Before.
No, we didn't. We just read it in the Mishnah. So in the Mishnah, all it says is mikarinta piritza. You're allowed to fix a hole in the wall. Uba shivi'it boneh kedarko, and on shivi'it you're allowed to build kedarko the normal way. Really, what it means is like from the brand new. You don't have to take a hole and figure out how to shut the hole. You could just build a wall the way normal people build walls. Okay. Now says the Gemara. We are on page 7a1 for this. Gemara says as follows. Umikarin et hapirtza b'moed. You see it? If you're following in the Gemara, it's about halfway down the middle of the page. Well, maybe a third of the way down the page. Okay? If you're following in the English, it's at the bottom of the first column on 7a1. Umikarin et hapirtza b'moed. You're allowed to close up a hole in the fence on chol moed, and on shemitah you can even build a new one. Gemara says, ketzad mekarin. How do you close up this hole? Rav Yosef says, "Behutza v'dafna." Anyone who learned Baba Batra will remember hutza v'dafna. Okay, hutza v'dafna is like a weave of almost like a mat made out of leaves and leaves that are leafy and leaves that are long and thin. So the hutza is the pieces of like the lulav branch. So if you go to a palm tree, it has those long, thin branches, right? Those long, thin leaves that come off of the main stem, right? That's what a palm tree looks like, right? So you take that long, thin piece, and then you take the laurel, which is a tight, leafy branch, and you take all the leafy branches, and you use the palm, you weave it together, and then you have basically like a mat that you could stick exactly into the wall, and that closes up the hole in the wall. But it's obviously not your preferred method of wall hole closing, right? It's only because it's chol moed. So we're allowing you to close it up, but in this unusual way with hutza v'dafna. The Moed Kattan, and in the Braita it says, tsar b'tzror ve'eno tach betit. You're allowed to pile stones. So tzror is a stone. Tsar is the verb of a stone.
Stone the stones.
You could stone the stones, okay? Ve'eno tach betit, but you can't smear it with plaster. What is it talking about smearing it with plaster? If you ever look at the top of the kotel, what do you see? You see like stones, and then tons of plaster joining the stones. So when it's big stones, you don't see the plaster is thin. But at the top of the kotel, you'll see there's like space filled in with plaster and then another rock. And then plaster and then another rock, okay? So if you do that, you're building the wall back into a wall. So that was not allowed in the Mishnah. So the Gemara's answer to ketzad mikarin is in either of these unusual ways, either behutza v'dafna, with the palm leaves and this laurel, really any kind of branches, or to line up, to pile up the stones, but not to make them with plaster. Okay? Says the Gemara. By the way, just as a side note on the concept of mikarin et takir, you're able to wall the wall with stones. I once went on Chol Moed Sukkot on a hike with some family members that weren't as religious as me. I was a rabbi in training. It was on Chol Moed Sukkot. They brought some food to eat on the hike. I don't eat anything out of the sukkah. Here I am in the middle of a mountain, and it wasn't a popular enough mountain for there to be a Chabad center. Right? So what am I going to do? I have no sukkah, but I'm in the wild. I grabbed a bunch of rocks. I found a tree that was leaning up against the side of the mountain. So in between the tree and the mountain was not so much space. I filled in the space between the tree and the mountain with loose stones. And then I built a little mini stone wall on the other side, minimum shi'ur of 7 by 7. I had to build it 10 tefachim high. 7 by 7 by 10 is not a lot of space, but it's enough to be able to get underneath it. I found some branches lying around on the floor. Perfect. Tzcha. Built myself a sukkah. Okay? In under maybe 15 minutes it took me, not even 10 minutes. So that concept that those stones put together without being plastered are still considered a kir, a wall, is relevant also in the halachot of sukkah.
So we're
okay?
differentiating fence. We said fence before.
Fence you were talking about before. This is something else.
Right, but it's differentiating.
Yes.
Wall and fence.
Wall and fence. Yes. Different halachot. Correct. Okay. Wall is much more solid. Okay.
Permanent.
Yes, and permanent, and that's also part of what's asur. Okay. Says the Mishnah. All right. Amar Rav Chizda. So what did we just learn? We just learned that when mikarin tapirtza b'moed, it's not that you could close up the hole. Like you might have thought, look, I'm not going to build a new wall, but so long as I'm filling in holes, I can go crazy. Let me back up that cement truck, just fill it with cement or, spackle it, do everything. The halacha is clearly in the Mishnah that even if you're just filling the hole, even that needs to be done in a more temporary way. Exactly. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Chizda said, okay, all this that you just told me, that you're not allowed to build it up, build a new wall, but you're allowed to fix a hole. Lo shanu ela kotel hagina. You're talking about the wall of a gina, of a garden. Okay? Aval kotel hatzer, but a wall of a hatzer, right? What's a hatzer? Hatzer is a courtyard that has all the homes of the people. So they used to build homes around the chatzer. They didn't have a lot of land to be able to play with. So not everyone could have a backyard. So what did they do? They took a piece of earth, or land, and they built a bunch of houses backing up into the communal backyard. That is a chatzer. It's in a lot of places. It's in
when Haman comes in.
Yeah, Haman bechatzer. A lot of places we talk about hatzer. Right? We talk about it in Torah. Hatzerot v'tizahav.
Common backyard?
Common backyard. All the halachot of eruv, right? For carrying. Hatzer. Eruve hatzerot. It was a very common experience because what is it? Rishut HaYachid, Rishut HaRabim, belongs to everybody, but also belongs only to us, the people, right? So it's kind of a quasi-Yachid, quasi-Rabim, this nature of this chatzer, okay? So all sorts of halachot, we're not going into the laws because then we'll get distracted, okay? However, so you have a wall around the chatzer. You get into that chatzer, right? Now you have access to all the homes. So lo shanu el b'kotel hagina, aval kotel hachatzer, but the wall of a chatzer, boneh kidarko. You're allowed, if it gets a pirta in it, you're allowed to build it up properly.
Outside the houses, or was within the inside?
It's unlike, let's say, around the edge of the yard. So the yard, if it's open into the yard, then you could get into the yard, which has all the houses backing into it.
Square with the wall.
So imagine there's a wall. Imagine there's a wall around. Inside there's a bunch of houses and a common area in the middle. Okay?
Like a little communal.
So like if the wall was intact, a thief couldn't get in. Okay?
It's a gated community.
It's a gated community.
They're in Miami.
Exactly.
Like
So the Rav Chizda is adding that the laws of fixing a hole in a temporary way is only when it's talking about a gina. Like the loss is not so big. What's going to happen? The guy's going to have a cucumber? Oh, yeah, right? Like they say in Arabic. However, when it comes to hatzer, if the guy gets in, it's dangerous. I just want to give you an example of this concept. When my house was robbed in London, What happened? The guy got into a backyard. Once he got in the backyard, there's a side alleyway along by my house. That space nobody could see. So he could take his merry time, make as much noise as he wants, breaking in, because he's not worried about getting caught. So we had one of those PVC, the PVC doors with the window in it and then like a square at the bottom. He just kicked in the whole square at the bottom, climbed through the square at the bottom, robbed us blind. Okay? So it's very dangerous to leave a place where the thief can operate with some level of protection and privacy. Okay? So therefore, in a case of a wall of a chatzer, the halacha is boneh kedarko, you're allowed to build it up as much as you need in a normal way. Build it up normally, build it up permanently. Okay. Says the Gemara, let's bring a proof. Now the Gemara is going to do this. I just want to give you a little heads up, okay? The Gemara is going to do this. We're going to take a Braita. The Braita exists in the ether. Watch it. Braita's over here, okay? And the Gemara is going to do two things. One opinion is that the Gemara assumed that we bought the Braita to bring a proof to Rav Chizda. The second approach in the Gemara is, right, that we brought the Braita to ask a question on Rav Chizda. In each scenario, we're going to do the same thing. When we try to prove from it to Rav Chizda, the Gemara is going to just knock out the proof. So Rav Chizda is the same as he was before the Braita. In the second version of the Gemara, we bought the Braita as a question on Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda is going to parry, he's going to sidestep the question, in which case Rav Chizda is the same as he was without the Braita. Which is why I believe there is this kind of Ikad Amri. We remember that there was a Braita about Rav Chizda. How did they say it? Were they trying to prove him from it? Were they trying to ask a question on him? We knew that it was involved. We just weren't sure how. So therefore, the Gemara is going to see both sides. But don't be confused. Really, we wind up in the same place in each of the Ika De'amris. So say that with me, Ika De'amri.
Ika De'amri.
That you find that all over Shas. Ika means there is. De'amri that say. Ya'ani, there are those that say.
But he was a high regarded. Rav Chizda was a special guy. Just picking one.
He was very highly regarded, but yes, but it's not because of his high regard.
No, just because this one is him.
Exactly, this one is him, and we remembered a Braita that dealt with his halacha. Okay, so remember, what's his halacha? That when we said that you can't build something up fresh, right from the bottom, we said that only about the wall of a garden, not the wall of a chatzer. Because the wall of a chatzer is much more dangerous. It needs to be much more protected. Let's just review one more minute. Go back to the Mishnah before we get into the Braita, because we're going to kind of dance a little bit. Remember, Mekarinta pirza b'moed, on the Moed, what?
I think it's Archei Rabim also for the fence, but
we might touch on that. Umekarinta pirza b'moed, on the holiday, you're allowed to fix up the wall, and how do we explain that? Temporary. Ubashivit, but when it comes to the Shemitah, boneh kedarko, you're allowed to build it usual, like perfect from the floor up. Okay, so remember that one more time. And what did we say this is talking about, Rav Chizda? When do you have to fix it temporary? The wall of a garden, not the wall of a courtyard. So the Mishnah one more time says, when you're fixing, according to Rav Chizda, when you're fixing the wall of a garden, okay, what do you fix it? You fix it temporary on the holiday, and you fix it permanently on Shemitah. Okay. Says the Braita, Lema Messiah, let's bring a proof to assist, to say that Rav Chizda is correct. Kotel gochel reshut rabim. You have a wall, and the wall is leaning over, jutting out into Reshut Rabim, public property. Madison Avenue is a wall leaning into the street. Soteru boneh kedarko. You're allowed to tear the wall down and build it back up again, mepnei sakana. Because it's a sakana, it's dangerous. It's dangerous to have a wall that's leaning in public location. So dangerous, okay? Says the Gemara. So what do you see from here? Obviously, right? If we're talking about a scenario over here where the courtyard, the wall is a wall of leaning into Reshut Rabim, so it's dangerous. So when the situation is that the wall is dangerous, sorry, you're allowed to rebuild it. Now, are we talking about over here a wall of a garden?
No.
How do you know?
It said the public domain.
Rabim. Yeah.
So what? Maybe my garden backs up against the public domain.
Open.
No, remember what the Mishnah said.
Because if it was a garden, they would need this.
Temporary.
Not they wouldn't be allowed. One more time. The Mishnah says on the wall of a garden you could build up temporary, but not permanent. Comes the Mishnah. The Mishnah says you have a wall leading into Rabim, you could build it up again fresh. Knock the whole thing down, build it up from scratch. Obviously, we're talking about a wall of a chatzer. Why? Because a wall of a ginah you would only be able to do temporary. So we're obviously talking about that. And look, not only did it let you patch up the wall permanently, you could tear the whole wall down and build it up again. So obviously, kotel chatzer, you're allowed to build up the whole thing. Gemara says, no, what are you talking about? Hatam kidekatani tama. The Mishnah literally tells you why you're allowed to do it. Sakana. It says it because of danger. Different situation. Tzarchei Rabim. Right? So the reason why you're allowed to build it up, the Mishnah tells you it's because it's dangerous. By the way, if anything, it's a proof against Rav Chizda.
Yeah.
It means you're not allowed to do it.
Because we're obviously talking about
They have another reason
the
why.
wall of a
Another
chatzer.
reason why.
And there's another reason.
Not for his reason.
Only for that, not for his reason.
Different reason.
If anything,
Coincidentally.
it knocks out Rav Chizda, right? So you're sitting here wondering, doesn't the Gemara realize that? That's the second approach of the Gemara. You got it? So we're going to see the Ikadamri. But however, thus far, so what are we saying? When it's a sakana, you're able to knock down and rebuild the wall. But don't assume that tells you that Rav Chizda is right, that a kotel hatzer, you're able to build from scratch. Don't assume that. You know why? Because over here it's talking about sakana. It's danger. So therefore the reason why you're allowed to do it is because it's dangerous.
Thieves are not sakana.
Sorry?
Thieves are not sakana.
No.
Rav Chizda, we said it was lost.
No.
Thieves could come in. That's
You're
not
asking a
danger.
great question. Thieves are not sakana.
Thief is coming. I can't call the police on Shabbat.
Thief is coming, it's loss, not sakana.
Wow.
There's one kind of thief.
Yeah.
There's one kind of thief which is sakana.
25.
No. Gemara says,
In the tunnel?
yes!
Oh,
Wow, unbelievable. Baba Machteret. If you have a thief tunneling in, Hamas, right? Halacha is that thief,
It's sakana.
sakana. Because the effort he put in to be able to tunnel into your house, if you stand up against him and you tell him, don't take my TV, don't take my Gemara, don't take my different houses, don't take my item, the guy's going to kill you to take your item. That's what it says.
He's very determined.
But where did this guy come from?
This guy regular.
He came through the fence. Right? We know how he came in. We know his POE.
Lower level.
We know his point of entry because that's the pirzah in the wall. Because there's a hole in the
No
fence.
cash bail.
Always cash bail in New York.
Yeah, release him. He's released.
It's catch and release.
But we're not-
Like the fish.
Yeah, but
Okay?
this guy's not
87
so
times at least.
But so it's not sakana.
qualified. for
No,
sakana.
it's loss, not sakana. Okay?
But that would have tunneled.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to tunnel because you could go through the.
No, he's just
Which
saying
means I don't have a proof. Baba Machteret, you're allowed to kill him.
Because more
The
determined.
guy comes out of town, shoot him in the
That
head.
guy's really.
Right.
Because it's already telling you that this guy, that kind
Tunnel guys are
of.
real big.
The other guy,
Simple
right,
guy.
walks in the front door. I don't know, he might be
He's a
tunnel.
sketchy guy. Yeah.
He might be.
We should have
No?
looked at
He's a regular thief.
It's the same question, by the way. The girls always ask this question when they were dating. Bridge guy or tunnel guy? They don't know. Tunnel guy, you don't get it, you shoot him. Okay, fine. Says. By the way, it's a very big problem. People learn the wrong shot in the Gemara. The day could end very differently. Guy gets shot in the head. Came from the tunnel. Boom! I learned the Gemara. Okay, fine. Says the Gemara. YouTube transcript is like, what the heck is going on? Okay. Says the Gemara. And some people say, Tashma, let's learn a Braita that is a question on Rav Chizda. Remember, what does Rav Chizda say? Let's go back. Rav Chizda says, you fix up the wall temporary on Chol HaMoed, and you fix it up full on Shemitah. Okay, that's only the wall of a garden. The wall of a chatzer you can fix up completely. As much as you want, build it, kidarko, the normal way. So the Gemara says, Over here, the Mishnah, the Braita says, Kotel HaGochel Reshut HaRabim, a wall that's leading to Reshut HaRabim. Soter Boneh Kedarko B'nei HaSakana. You're allowed to knock the whole thing down and build it up again because of the sakana, because someone's going to get into your courtyard, and excuse me, it's leaning in the wall and leaning onto Reshut HaRabim, it's going to fall on them, there's sakana. You're allowed to build it from scratch. Mipnei HaSakana in. For this reason, you could build it because sakana. What if it's not sakana? And we're obviously talking about a wall of a chatzer. You're not allowed to build it. That proves not like Rav Chizda. So you see, this is the beauty of learning how to learn Gemara, is now you actually get what the Gemara's moves are going to be.
So they have a higher threshold.
It's going to be, you guys are getting like quarterback, you're going through the read progressions. I either have a pass or I have a run option. It's an RPO, right? So you're watching, you see the Midrash, you see the Braita, you already know. Either the Gemara is going to use it as a proof for, and then knock out the proof. Or the Gemara is going to use it as a question on, but then the Gemara is going to have to knock out the question. So,
They have
says,
a higher threshold.
what do you mean?
The Mishnah, they have a higher threshold for building the wall than Rav Izda.
Yeah, so only
They
sakana.
raise the threshold.
So it sounds like Rav Chizda's wrong.
Right, yeah.
Because Rav Chizda is saying
reason is not
that
valid.
just chatzer is enough.
They don't agree.
They're saying no, only sakana, proving that a mere kotel hatzer, no good. Says the Gemara, Lema tevet shufta de Rav Chizda. Let's say this is a knockout punch to Rav Chizda's approach. Amalach Rav Chizda says, no, hatam soter uboneh. What did I say? I said
You're allowed to patch up.
you let to build normally. You don't have to patch. So you could build with leaves. You don't have to patch with piled up stones. Hacha bon soter uboneh. When it's a sakana, you could rip down the whole wall and rebuild it from scratch. Hacha, in my Mishnah, all I said was boneh velo soter. There's already a hole in the wall. I just said that you could build it if it came down, but not that you could demolish it and put it up again. Gemara says, oh, that's fair point. So kotel hatzer, you could rebuild. A wall that's leaning into Reshut HaRabim, because why? Because the other wall is not falling. So it's not a sakana. A wall that's sakana, you could knock down and rebuild again. Es the Gemara, hatam nami, listor velo livni. The Gemara says, oh my gosh, oh, you got me. So you just made me realize, if the sakana of the wall is
That it'll fall.
that it'll fall, we should allow you only to knock it down
And not build it.
and not build it back up again.
That's true.
That's an
Answers the Gemara, brilliant.
But then nobody will knock it down.
Im kein mimna velo sater. The Baal HaBayit won't let you take down his wall because now he has protection.
Now we have nothing.
It's a maybe situation that it will fall. I'll live with the
You
maybe.
got to replace it for him.
The Hatzalah guy, but
Excellent. Brilliant comparison. It's the comparison I was thinking of before. The comparison is, the halacha is that we have a sakana, you have a hatzalah person, they come, they pick up the guy, take him to the hospital. Now, the danger is averted. Why is the hatzalah guy allowed to drive home? So one answer is, because there might be another call in the neighborhood. Okay? What if the hospital is equidistant to the neighborhood as his own house? So it won't make a difference if he goes home.
Now he doesn't have
Maybe he should stay in the hospital. Halacha is, if we make Hatzalah guys stay the whole Shabbat and the whole Yom Kippur and the whole Yom Tov, no Hatzalah guy is going to go. They're not going to take the calls.
disincentive.
Not missing the whole holiday with my family. Forget it, I'm out. So in order to have Hatzalah Nefashot, to take the guy, you also have to let the guy go home.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Says the Gemara, by the way, if that's the case, if we're worried about a sakana, we have to let you knock it down and rebuild it. Otherwise, he's not letting you knock it down.
To knock it down.
Not just not motivated, he won't let you. It's his. He won't let you knock it down. Says the Gemara, okay, so we don't have a proof for or a question on Rav Chizda from the Braita. So how do we know if he's right? Rav Ashi says, Matnita nami daika. We could read it into the Mishnah itself that he's correct. The Katani, because the Mishnah says, remember, it says, if you have a fence, right, and you're allowed to build temporarily fix a hole in the fence, on Chol HaMoed and build it properly on Shemitah. What was Rav Chizda's chidush really? His chidush is that the Mishnah is not going on all walls. Not all walls were created equal. His halakha of temporary fixes versus full fixes, that was a halakha on walls of gardens. But walls of chatzerot, of a courtyard, the Mishnah was never talking about. That's Rav Chizda's Hidush. And therefore he says, has a different law. Because the Mishnah is not talking about that case. Gemara says, Matnita nami daika. The Mishnah is also, it has an allusion to this. The Katani, because the end of the sentence is, Uba Shivi'it bone kedarko. And on Shivi'it, you're allowed to build it normally. You don't have to build it in a weird way. You don't have to build it temporarily.
Why can't I build a wall?
Now, ask the Gemara, De'echa, what kind of wall are we talking about that you would need to tell me that on Shivi'it, on Shemitah, you're allowed to build it? Ilema dechatzer, if it's talking about a case of a courtyard, tzricha lememar. On Shemitah, there's no laws against construction in your house. What was the laws of Shemitah? Laws of the field, laws of farming. So if the Mishnah was talking about walls of courtyards, then you would not need to tell me that on Shemitah you're allowed to build it. No hadush. Got nothing to do with it. It's not like it doesn't tell you. Shemitah, you're allowed to scratch your nose. Shemitah, you're also allowed to brush your hair. Shemitah, you can take a shower. There's no relevance. So it must be that the case is in a situation where the wall in question involves something which is Shemitah adjacent. What would that be? A fence of a garden. Why might I have thought that you can't build it? Elalav digina. What's the hadush? I might think that anybody who sees someone building up or fixing a hole in the wall of his garden, what's he doing? He's keeping everybody out of his garden. That was your question when we first learned the Mishnah. On Shemitah, everyone needs to have access. So maybe someone will say, you're not allowed to do that. Why are you fixing the hole? You can't do that. You can't fix the wall from new on Shvi'it of a garden. Can't do that, right? What's the Hadush? The Hadush is Shma Mina, that you are allowed to fix it. But how are you allowed to fix it? You're keeping people out. The answer is, yeah, no problem. This part of the wall, I'm fixing my wall. There's still a gate. Let him go through like a normal person. What is he, Shiva Sabet Tamuzing my house?
But Rabbi, what's the urgency that it has to be done on Chol HaMoed? Why can't it be done right after?
Excellent question. The answer is, whenever there's a pirza by a gina, right, there's the opportunity for there to be a loss with rodents coming in to eat the stuff in the garden, right?
So that has to do it temporary. Why don't you do it temporary?
So you could do it temporary. So on Chol HaMoed, you must do a temporary. That's what the Mishnah says. Right. That's why you must do temporary. Yeah. And on Shemitah, you're allowed to build it full. Why? Because on Shemitah, there was never an Isur to do this. What could possibly be the problem? Two possible problems. One problem is if you walled everybody out of it, but there's a fence. You could get it in the gate. So I haven't walled anybody out. What would be the problem vis-a-vis Shemitah? People might think, even though there is another entrance, but if they don't know there's another entrance, it looks like Marit Ayin. It's Marit Ayin that you're protecting your crops on Shevi'it. Shasur. On that, the Mishnah says, no problem, no issue. You're allowed to build the wall for full from Shemitah. So now it comes out. According to this, the Gemara brought a proof to Rav Chizda that the case of the Mishnah was talking about a garden wall. So let's review. What does the Mishnah hold?
That he was talking about.
The Mishnah was talking about it.
Right.
So the Mishnah was talking about a garden wall. So by a garden wall, we said, Chol HaMoed, temporary. Shemitah, full. Says Rav Chizda, that's only on a garden wall. When it comes to a chatzer wall, permanent. Not only on Shemitah. Shemitah, obviously. Don't do it Shemitah. Right. But even on Chol HaMoed, which I might have thought, do temporary work, do it in an easier way. When it comes to a situation where it's dangerous, where it's a big loss of the guy coming in, I'd be allowed to build it properly. Okay? Would you be allowed to knock it down and start again? No. How do I know that? Because in defending himself from the Braita, right? Remember the Braita says you're allowed to knock down the wall and rebuild it because of sakana. We asked 1 second, how could you say then that you could rebuild it without sakana?
You can't.
The answer is you can't knock it down and rebuild it. But what can you do? You could build it kedarko. You could fix it normally. You could plaster it.
Right.
Okay?
Knock it down and rebuild it.
Not knock it down and rebuild it. Or even, if it got knocked down, you could build it up fresh. But you couldn't knock down a wall with a breach and rebuild it. When are you allowed to knock down and rebuild? Only in the time of a sakana. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen. 17. Okay, we're going to continue with the Mishnah. Be'ezrat Hashem next time.